Do you want a free trophy?
Yeah.
Where'd you drop the rocket? Right here.
What?
Oh.
I'm sorry.
In a world where we are constantly bombarded with senseless propaganda that divides us, it's good to have an old-fashioned cooperative experience where you get to shoot shit and shoot the shit with your buddies. I would not look too deep into the democratic slogans of Helldivers 2, the surface-level satire purely existing to insulate the player in a setting as real and ridiculous as any conflict past or ongoing, as you combat, of all things, bugs, literally and figuratively, negating any pesky political divide that would get in the way of the thrill and the sting of battle.
What? What?
Here in the fantasy of Super Earth, players can stand united in this double-A killing floor extraction simulator that, out of all odds, manages to survive the wave of failed industry live service titles that were dead on arrival in the hellscape of corporate greed. Real democracy is being able to vote with your wallet. A vote that surely counts as you get what you pay for. And with a price of only $40 in an era of $70 bloat, Helldivers 2 feels like a fair discount for a game that lets you bring along a friend or three for some mindless shits and giggles. It's a testament to Sony's patriotism that they finally produced an actual live service game that didn't bottom out right after launch, even if it's seemingly carried by PC players. Helldivers seems to have a deeper deployment than the others, though its simplistic and limited design philosophy puts a question mark on how long the roadmap ahead stretches across the in-game galaxy. The developers are ever present through the use of a game master, meaning new content for those that seek it, at the risk of making the old content redundant over time. It already becomes stale, frequenting the same maps with the same enemies and the same set drops, weapons, and stratagems. So, although the idea of an ever-evolving experience is interesting, it also puts the player in a position to wonder if the game that they paid for and sunk time into will ever be finished by the point that the player has become finished with it and its gimmicks. For all of the intensity courtesy of the hyper-realism of the close-quarters combat, the stampeding swarms, and the bright flash of the bombs just out of danger close reach of the concussive shockwave, Helldivers 2 is also a repetitive experience that is best enjoyed in brief spurts with communication. That way, you can talk to each other mostly about random topics, so you don't notice how tedious the game you're playing ultimately is. What I realized in my 40+ hours en route to the Platinum, leaving much room left for grinding the somewhat less than desirable unlocks, is that Helldivers 2 functions best when you don't take it too seriously, as you invent your own way of playing. Sure, the game has a competent design and a rather impressive physics engine for the budget, sustaining all of the action on screen in a cohesive chaos, at least until the game crashes and you lose your progress. It can get as hilarious as it is hectic.
Disgusting infestation.
Look at this disgusting infestation.
Operation accomplished.
He
Your
sounds
valor is beyond.
disgusted.
But even when you're dismembering the disgusting vermin in the name of liberty, when you're killing bugs that all look the same way every time, and that's all you're doing, it's robotic enough to turn any suspense into indifference due to the repetition of it all. Perhaps a metaphor as true as the uselessness of any real war. Where Helldivers 2 succeeds is in its comedy gold, earning a silver medal for everything else at best. The tension is palpable at times, but the actual reward system, though it is tangible, feels out of reach. The progression system, through loot extracts, XP points, and Battle Pass currency, which can at least be earned entirely through playing in a reasonable time frame, is slightly above average for the moment. I would have liked if harder missions gave you increased rewards rather than the same samples but with more availability. The hallmark of an extraction shooter is the risk and reward, and when you can play lower level missions for essentially the same loot, even the higher difficulties become a bit trivial. It would have made more sense for the elite enemies such as the colossal Bile Titans to drop exclusive items upon defeat. In other such games like The Division, the real peril in extracting is the threat of other players lurking in the shadows to steal your hard-earned shit at the last second and take the shuttle off in your place. You kind of get something like that here, with the troll and the nuisance of friendly fire, but in normal circumstances everything is shared and distributed evenly, so in theory you only need one player to extract with all the samples to avoid any major penalty. Failure is still an option, but if you weren't too fussed about the rewards to begin with, does it really linger over you?
Day to you, sir.
Wait, did we?
We did it,
We
boys.
fucking failed to extract on a 2!
Oh my god.
If and when you fail, you just go back to the bare bones base, and you dive right back in for the overly long missions with the same copy and paste objectives and loot locations. I think the greatness of a co-op game is about some sense of team accomplishment, like making it to a high round in Zombies where you can have your name etched permanently on the leaderboards, or in a game like Resistance 2 where you get public stat tracking and ribbons for every minor and major reward. The absence of a class system and the variability in the roles that each player plays also contributes to the lackluster feel of HD2. It says a lot that you can have so much going on in a game but feel so little of it matters. The player base of Super Earth is still strong for now, but that can only be because every other live service game has ended in fiasco, and HD2, for its meritocracy and mediocrity, stands alone in the smoke and rubble as the one that made it. I'd like to see the game get better, and for Sony to actually produce some games that keep it simple, that don't insult our intelligence or prey on our wallets. Maybe a PvP mode should come next, or at least another game of a similar style and feel should be greenlit. Sony-produced multiplayer games are the best, if and when they decide to make one from the heart, and not from the bottomless ass pit clogged with their CEO's head. For now, Helldivers 2 has a solid foothold on the live service space, but if it wants to keep that flag raised, it's going to need to be conscious and careful of which way the wind blows. Player sentiment is what matters, and the customer is always king. That's how democracy counts. And where democracy lives, on the edge of a mushroom cloud, called in by a bunch of idiots with nothing better to do than play Helldivers 2. I'll give it a score once they show us a little bit more.
Because we keep blowing each other up. For fuck's sake.
We got 0 stars as well. Nice.
And they're just like, mission well done. Because we completed the mission. Well, first up, they're just like...